All right, everyone, we are now going to go ahead and take you over here to our interview that we do have today with our guest. It is going to be Mr. Marcos, or is it Marcos? Marcus? Is it Marcus or Marcos?
Marcos.
All right, perfect. I thought I said it correctly. I apologize if I said it wrong in advance. Marcos Velez, you are going for the 2026 primary election for Texas, and this is coming up on March 3rd. And so we're going to kind of dive in and talk a little bit more about it. With early voting that starts on February the 17th, on the ballot there are many statewide seats, including governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, land commissioner, agricultural commissioner, comptroller, and more. Republicans and Democrats also choose candidates for congressional and legislative offices, the State Board of Education, and judicial seats. Now, today we're talking to you, and you are running for the Democratic nomination for lieutenant governor. So let's go ahead and get to know, why are you running it right now?
Yes, ma'am. So thank you guys for having me. My name is Marcos Velez. I actually come out of the oil industry, uh, got really involved in labor, and went to go work for the United Steelworkers International Union. I'm getting in this race because when I look around, I don't see politicians that really understand what Texans are facing right now. You have soaring costs, you have a lack of good way, like family sustaining jobs, you have issues with funding public education. And I hear a lot of political talking points, but I don't see people that actually seem to understand exactly how that's impacting everyday Texans. I fight for higher wages, better benefits, better health care every single day, and I'm able to successfully do that through organized labor. And I think those are things that all Texans could benefit from.
So, why specifically lieutenant governor?
Sure. So if you look at the last couple years, I believe that a lot of Texans have been advocating for things like a higher state minimum wage, better funded education, but these are all things that they're not making their way into law. And so what ends up happening is the lieutenant governor prioritizes what legislation will move, and all of these things are things that I plan to prioritize when I am lieutenant governor. So running for lieutenant governor because I'm tired of hearing excuses. I want to be able to have a direct impact on what legislation is heard in the Texas Senate. And what better way to do it than to step into the chair?
So let's talk a little bit about your background. Your website calls you, and I quote, blue collar Texas worker and labor leader. Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. So, worked in an oil refinery like many Texans. That oil refinery was represented by a union. And so, a while back, went to go work for the International Union, actually negotiating the contracts that cover those sites. And so, those contracts, they handle everything from wage increases to healthcare cost, working conditions, hours. And so, basically, all the same bargaining that occurs in the Texas Senate. I do that on a daily basis with multinational corporations. Uh, hey, but just a normal blue collar guy, right? I don't live in some fancy condo in Austin. I live here in the community in Houston. Very hands on kind of guy.
So, what would you say is the biggest takeaway from, actually being able to be involved in being a Texas blue collar worker and labor leader? What has this field taught you?
Sure. It's taught me that special interest is something that doesn't budge without a demand. I believe the biggest issue facing normal Texans is these deals that are occurring in Texas government occur in silence behind closed doors. We need more transparency. But when politicians talk about transparency, they would have to expose the system that they operate in. Coming as an outsider, I'm looking to bring that transparency to government because it benefits all of us normal working class people. I don't believe that a politician that's worth millions of dollars has the same concerns as a single mom that's wondering how she's going to feed her kids, as a college student that can't find a job, as a worker that's been sitting on layoff for 6 months. Those are all my neighbors, my friends, the people that I bargain for on a daily basis experience those conditions. And I think that's very different from a politician that's surrounded by, influential and rich people. And they forget that, like normal everyday people, we're not so much worried about the bills that they pass. We're worried about the bills that normal Texans can't pay.
Well, you are a member of the United Steelworkers Union and have bargained with corporations. What led you to join the union, and how has organized labor shaped your worldview, like politics, government, etc.?
I think what led me to join the union was just seeing the benefit in working together. When you talk about worldview, obviously growing up, raised, going to church every Sunday like many Texans, there's certain things that stick out to you. I've always been impressed by the story of the Tower of Babel, where you had a group of people working together and they did so well that they attracted the attention of God. To me, that shows that working people can accomplish anything when they work together. And I think it also taught me that government is more about creating division than solutions. As long as they create division and they keep us distracted and fighting, we're more worried about like this fringe issue. We're not focusing on the fact that there are 30 states that pay a higher minimum wage than the state of Texas. We're not looking at the fact that even though the state has carried over a surplus year after year and there's plenty of money, we can't fund education, we can't pay teachers, we can't fund teacher retirement. Instead of us focusing on the fact that our children aren't getting the resources they need, we're worried about what our neighbor may or may not be doing in the privacy of their own home. And I think all of those things that are so far out of touch and out of focus that we need someone with just a grounded reality in real Texas to come into office and refocus those priorities.
So, why get into politics?
Well, because unfortunately, it doesn't matter what we do, politics has an impact on all of our lives. Even if we're not interested in politics, they're interested in us. We're ruled from afar by a group of people that make decisions that impact every aspect of our life. And I just believe it's gotten to the point that if we don't do something now, there won't be much left for us. You drive down the streets of Texas and you see closed plants, closed factories, you see schools shutting down, you see school takeovers. We just keep moving further and further away from the prosperity that really used to exist in this state. And politicians like to put a lot of blame all over the place, but the reality is normal Americans, we go to work every day. We've been showing up to work, we've been doing our part. It's them that have accomplished little to nothing. They probably have the only job in the world where they go to work every day, they accomplish absolutely nothing, and they expect us to keep reelecting them.
So let's delve into your platform here. On the issues section of your website, it says you're running because Texans deserve leadership that listens, fights, and delivers. In your view, how has Dan Patrick failed to do these things?
I don't think Dan Patrick focuses on a single issue that matters to everyday Texans. Dan Patrick made a lot of promises when he came into office quite a while back. Uh, Ask yourself as a Texan, has your life gotten better over the last 15 years? And I think the majority of Texans would say no. Has Dan Patrick done anything to raise the state minimum wage? No. Has Dan Patrick done anything to fund our schools? He's participated in shifting $1 billion to private schools. But again, that doesn't benefit the majority of Texans. 60% of Texas counties do not have a single private school. And then the counties that do have those private schools, it's a very small percentage of the population that will actually receive a voucher. We could go on and on and on, but when we talk about people paying for groceries, people being able to find family sustaining jobs, people being able to afford housing, he's done nothing to help any of that.
So, standing up for rural Texas, how will you do that?
So it depends which part of rural Texas you're looking at. One, I think it's a shame and it's a sin that right when we hit a point where cattle farmers were starting to turn a profit, we're importing massive amounts of beef from outside of the United States. We have groundwater issues all over Texas. In some places, it's these huge data centers they're trying to build. In other parts of Texas, it's a lack of water. And so rural Texas is often forgotten. I think politicians look at rural Texas as invaluable because they don't see a whole lot of votes there. Hey, rural Texas, those are our neighbors, those are human beings, those are people that deserve representation. And so, look, rural Texas needs investment, and they need the same respect as the big cities.
So, kind of a two-part question here. On education, you say that you will fully fund public education and raise teacher pay. You claim the state has the resources to do this while lowering property taxes. Well, where would this money come from? Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. So there's been a big push in recent years to legalize gambling in the state of Texas. Dan Patrick is, very vehemently against this. The reality is, if your religious beliefs drive you to the point that you believe you shouldn't be gambling, then don't gamble. Texans are already spending a ton of money gambling. All that money is leaving our state. They're crossing the nearest border. They're going to Oklahoma. They're going to Louisiana. There are several revenue streams that we could tap into that would further fund education. But the other thing is, the state has carried over a surplus. It's just where we're spending the money. We're not prioritizing education.
Okay, well, let's also address the elephant in the room, your party affiliation. Democrats have been eyeing the Lone Star State for a decade now, but so far they have come short. Well, why do you think Democrats have so far failed to flip the state? And do you plan to reach out to traditionally Republican voters?
So yeah, look, I do plan to reach out to traditionally Republican voters. When you look at what we do within the context of organized labor, our members come from just about every major political affiliation and some that aren't so popular. Everything that I do is working across party lines, collaborating when appropriate, but not capitulating to ideas that don't benefit working class people. So if it's good for working class people, it's good for me. If it benefits working Texans, it's something that I'm interested in. But again, uh, I plan to reach out to all Texans and advocate for issues that benefit all Texans.
Marcos, before I ask the next question, do you mind maybe centering your camera again because you are kind of on the corner there?
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong with this thing. Sorry.
No, it's totally fine. I just want to make sure that you're being fully seen by our viewers.
Here we go.
All right, that's a little bit better. All right, so moving on here to our next question. Let's also talk a little bit about why you think, or why do you think Democrats have so far failed to flip the state? And do you have a plan to reach out to traditionally Republican voters?
Democrats have failed to flip the state because their policies, their messaging has not hit, but they also have yet to run a candidate that normal everyday people can identify with. When I look at the guys in our union halls, some of them are traditional Democrats that have voted Democrat since the 60s. They've migrated to the Republican Party because the Democrats are shoving candidates down their throats so they don't identify with, and they really don't have the same value chains. I think the difference is I'm someone that goes to work every single day. I'm someone that fights for working class people, and all of the policies that I'm advocating for are resoundingly popular with Republicans and Democrats, not just within labor, but outside of labor. And so when you talk about reaching out to Republicans, hey, look, Republicans are part of the base as well. I mean, I am fighting for Texans in general. And again, that goes across party lines.
Well, assuming Democrats do well in the midterms, down ballot candidates could stand to benefit from the coattail effect. Well, do you have a preference for the top of the ticket for Senate? Anything else you would like to touch on?
That is probably the most controversial question in the world. I will tell you, I do have a preference. Uh, I'm going to vote for the candidate that I feel is going to do best by labor and just labor in general. And so, obviously, like all voters, I'm going to go out and I'm going to keep doing my research. Uh, but look, I'm voting for the person that's going to do best by labor.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to touch on that we might have missed here in this interview?
Hey, the only thing I want to say is when people are out there doing their research, I think that we have a unique opportunity to actually elect someone that works for a living. I would encourage people, regardless of their party affiliation, to look into my website, see what I'm about. Again, I think the principle of paying people fairly, of creating more jobs, of lowering the cost of housing, it's not a campaign slogan. It's the reality of what I do every single day, and it's what I'd like to do for all people in Texas.
All right. Well, thank you so much. That was Marcos Velez, who is running for a Democratic nomination for lieutenant governor. Thank you so much for speaking with us today here on East Texas Now. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
All right.